Did you know that over 120,000 households in England were officially recorded as homeless last year? And that number is rising faster than ever? Behind those statistics are real families being forced out of their homes, sleeping in cars, temporary shelters, or on friends' sofas. We're not talking about a future threat. The UK's housing crisis is already here, and it's hitting millions harder than anyone expected. But what's causing this tidal wave of displacement? Is it just high rents and bad luck? Or is something much deeper going on? From greedy landlords and broken government promises, to interest rate hikes and climate disasters, the truth is a mix of shocking and overlooked reasons that are quietly reshaping where, and if, people can live. Some of these causes are hiding in plain sight. In this video, we're unpacking the 10 biggest reasons millions of Brits are at risk of losing their homes. And you won't believe what's number 7. Stay with us, because what you learn here might just affect your future too. Number 1. Skyrocketing rent prices. It's no secret, rent in the UK has reached record-breaking levels, and it's putting intense pressure on millions of households. In cities like London, Manchester, and Bristol, average monthly rents have climbed well above what most working people can afford. According to Zoopla, UK rents hit an all-time high in 2025, with the average tenant now paying more than 40% of their monthly income on rent, far above the recommended affordability threshold of 30%. For many, this means cutting back on essentials like food, heating, or even skipping bills just to stay housed. But this isn't just about numbers, it's about lives. Families are being priced out of areas they've lived in for years, and young professionals are forced into cramped flat shares far from work or support networks. Even key workers, nurses, teachers, and police officers are struggling to live in the communities they serve. And it's not just the cities. Rents in rural areas and coastal towns have also spiked, often due to second homes and the rise of short-term rentals like Airbnb. As demand rises and supply stays painfully low, landlords can charge almost anything, and people are desperate enough to pay. What's more disturbing is how this trend is shutting down the path to financial stability. With so much of their income swallowed by rent, fewer people can save for a deposit to buy a home of their own. This keeps them trapped in a vicious cycle, renting forever, with no real security, no ownership, and no relief in sight. And when one missed payment can lead to eviction, it creates a constant state of anxiety and instability. If current trends continue, we may be heading for a future where safe, affordable housing is no longer a right, but a luxury. Number 2. Rising interest rates. Over the past few years, the Bank of England has aggressively raised interest rates to combat inflation. While that might sound like a technical move that only affects economists and investors, its impact on everyday people, especially homeowners and aspiring buyers, has been devastating. In 2021, interest rates were sitting at historic lows, making mortgages relatively affordable. But fast forward to 2025, and many homeowners are now paying double or even triple their original monthly repayments. This sudden spike has left thousands struggling to keep up, and many are now on the verge of defaulting on their mortgages. What's worse is that for those whose fixed-rate mortgages have recently ended, the jump in repayments has been nothing short of shocking. People who were paying £700 a month are now facing bills closer to £1,400, with no increase in income to soften the blow. For some, this has meant dipping into savings, borrowing money just to cover bills, or even putting their home up for sale to avoid falling into arrears. And if they can't sell quickly enough, they risk repossession. The fear of losing your home, not because of bad financial decisions, but because of global economic shifts, has become an everyday reality. Even those looking to buy their first home are effectively locked out of the market. Higher interest rates mean bigger monthly repayments, stricter mortgage eligibility checks, and lower borrowing limits. Combined with high house prices, this creates an almost impossible hurdle for younger generations. The dream of homeownership is slipping further and further away. In effect, rising interest rates have created a housing trap, one where staying put becomes unaffordable, and moving forward is nearly impossible. And the longer rates stay high, the more people will find themselves losing their homes, not by choice, but by system failure. Number 3. eviction laws still favor landlords. For years, there's been talk of giving renters more protection, but the reality on the ground tells a different story. Section 21 no-fault evictions are still legal in England, despite repeated promises from the government to scrap them. This outdated law allows landlords to evict tenants without needing to give a reason, often with as little as 2 months' notice. In practice, that means even renters who pay on time, take care of the property, and follow every rule can suddenly find themselves without a home, and with little to no warning. The government's proposed renters reform bill was meant to change all that. It promised to abolish no-fault evictions and create more security for renters, but it's been delayed multiple times. In the meantime, landlords are issuing Section 21 notices in record numbers, some even rushing to evict tenants before the law potentially changes. For many renters, this creates a constant feeling of instability, never knowing if a knock on the door could mean losing your home. And once you're evicted, finding a new rental in today's overheated market can be nearly impossible. This legal imbalance not only makes it easy for landlords to remove tenants without cause, but it also discourages renters from speaking up. Fear of eviction stops people from reporting poor living conditions, rent hikes, or unsafe homes. And for families with children, the stakes are even higher. Being uprooted can mean losing school places, commuting hours from work, or even ending up in temporary accommodation. Until meaningful reform is passed and actually enforced, eviction laws in the UK will continue to give landlords the upper hand, leaving renters vulnerable, voiceless, and often just one notice away from homelessness. It's not just unfair. It's a system set up to fail the very people it's meant to protect. Number 4. Lack of affordable housing. One of the biggest drivers of the UK's housing crisis is painfully simple. We're just not building enough affordable homes. Every year, demand grows as more people need places to live, yet the number of genuinely affordable houses and flats being built falls far short. In 2024, the UK government missed its housing targets once again, with only around 6,000 new affordable homes completed nationwide. That's a drop in the ocean when compared to the hundreds of thousands needed annually. Instead of affordable options, developers focus on luxury flats, city-center penthouses, and investment properties, homes built for profit, not for people. The shortage is especially severe in areas where housing is most needed. In cities, the demand from young professionals, low-income families, and key workers far outweighs the supply. Meanwhile, in rural towns and coastal regions, second home ownership and holiday lets have driven prices sky-high, squeezing out locals. Council housing, the backbone of social support for decades, has been decimated by years of underfunding, right-to-buy sales, and little to no replacement stock. Waiting lists for social housing stretch on for years, and even then, many families end up placed in temporary or unsuitable accommodation. The result? People are stuck. Renters who want to buy can't afford to. Families in overcrowded homes can't find bigger ones. And vulnerable individuals, including the elderly and disabled, are often left behind entirely. It's created a clogged and broken system, where everyone is competing for too few properties at too high a price. Until the UK invests seriously in building not just more homes, but the right kind of homes, this crisis will only deepen. Because without access to affordable, secure housing, everything else, stability, health, opportunity, becomes harder to achieve. Housing isn't just about walls and a roof. It's the foundation of a functioning society. Number 5. Wage stagnation. While the cost of living continues to climb, wages across the UK have barely moved in real terms over the last decade. Even though workers are technically earning more on paper, inflation has wiped out those gains, meaning people have less spending power than they did in 2008. This is especially devastating when paired with soaring rents, energy bills, food prices, and interest rates. For millions of people, it doesn't matter how hard they work, their income simply isn't enough to keep up with the rising cost of housing. This wage stagnation is hitting low and middle-income earners the hardest. Nurses, shop workers, delivery drivers, teachers, all the people we rely on to keep society running, are being pushed to the financial edge. Some are taking on second or third jobs just to make ends meet. Others are forced to move far away from their workplaces, often spending hours commuting just to afford a roof over their heads. The idea that full-time work should provide a stable and decent living is no longer a reality for millions. As a result, many are falling into housing insecurity, not because of reckless spending or poor choices, but because the economic system no longer rewards hard work the way it used to. Saving for a deposit? Nearly impossible. Planning for the future? Pushed aside by the urgency of surviving the present. Without strong wage growth that reflects the real cost of living, housing will continue to slip further out of reach for everyday people. This isn't just an economic issue, it's a social one. When decent housing becomes unaffordable to working families, something is fundamentally broken. And unless wages catch up to the reality of modern living costs, more people will be left behind, facing evictions, instability, or worse. If this is hitting close to home, we want to hear from you. Share your story or thoughts in the comments. Your voice could help others feel less alone. And if you appreciate the time and effort we put into making these videos, hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it keeps us going. Number 6. The buy-to-let exodus. Over the past few years, the UK has seen a massive shift in the buy-to-let market, and it's not good news for renters. Thousands of small and medium-sized landlords are choosing to sell their rental properties and exit the market altogether. Why? A combination of higher interest rates, increased taxes, and tighter regulations have made renting out property far less profitable than it used to be. While these changes were intended to protect tenants and level the playing field, they've also created an unintended consequence: a shrinking pool of rental homes. When landlords leave the market, it doesn't just mean fewer properties to rent. It means more competition and higher prices for the properties that remain. In some areas, especially major cities, tenants are now facing bidding wars just to secure a basic flat. Viewings attract dozens of desperate applicants, and landlords can afford to be incredibly selective. In many cases, this puts families, students, and low-income renters at a serious disadvantage. As demand rises and supply falls, the balance of power tilts even further toward landlords, and those who stay in the market often feel no pressure to keep prices reasonable. For renters, this is more than just a numbers game. It means being stuck in properties that are too expensive, too small, or poorly maintained, simply because there are no other options. It also means more instability, as landlords selling up forces tenants to move with little warning, even if they've been living there for years. The buy-to-let exodus isn't slowing down, and unless serious steps are taken to stabilize the rental market, through better incentives, affordable housing development, or tenant support, millions more people will find themselves priced out, pushed out, or permanently stuck in a broken rental system. Number 7. Immigration pressures. Immigration has always played a role in shaping the UK's economy and culture, but in recent years, it's also become a key pressure point in the housing crisis. In 2024 alone, the UK recorded net migration of over 800,000 people, the highest level ever. That's hundreds of thousands of new residents arriving in a country already struggling with a housing shortage. While many of these individuals bring essential skills and contribute to public services, the sheer scale of migration is placing enormous demand on an already overstretched housing system. This surge in population growth means more competition for the same limited number of homes, especially in urban areas where infrastructure is already under pressure. Local councils are struggling to house vulnerable residents, and social housing waiting lists are growing even longer. In some areas, the increase in demand has pushed private rents even higher, making it even harder for long-term residents to stay in their communities. It's not about blaming individuals. It's about recognizing that the system isn't built to cope with such rapid growth, and that failure falls squarely on government planning. What makes this issue even more sensitive is the political and emotional tension surrounding immigration. It's easy for housing frustrations to turn into scapegoating, but the deeper truth is that successive governments have failed to build the infrastructure and homes needed to match population growth, whether it comes from migration or not. Immigration alone isn't the cause of the housing crisis, but when combined with low housing supply, wage stagnation, and weak renter protections, it becomes a major piece of the puzzle. Without a serious national strategy to address the impact of rapid population growth, the housing system will continue to buckle, and ordinary people, regardless of background, will be the ones who suffer. Number 8. The rise of short-term rentals. Over the last decade, the UK has seen a dramatic increase in short-term holiday lets, particularly through platforms like Airbnb. While it may seem harmless, homeowners renting out spare rooms or holiday homes for extra income, the consequences for long-term housing are far more serious. In popular cities and tourist destinations, entire blocks of flats and homes are being converted into full-time short-term rentals, removing them from the long-term rental market entirely. This has led to a sharp drop in available homes for locals, while rent prices in those areas have soared. In places like Cornwall, Edinburgh, and even parts of London, there are now more Airbnb listings than actual homes for rent. That means families, key workers, and young people trying to rent in their own communities are being priced out by tourists and investors chasing short-term profits. Meanwhile, many of these properties sit empty for large parts of the year, contributing nothing to the local housing supply. The impact is especially brutal in coastal and rural towns, where the local economy is heavily dependent on tourism, but the people who work there can no longer afford to live nearby. This explosion of short-term lets is happening largely unchecked. Regulations are patchy and poorly enforced, allowing landlords to bypass traditional rental rules and protections. While a handful of councils have begun introducing licensing schemes or caps on holiday lets, most areas have no such limits in place. As a result, housing markets are being distorted in ways that benefit investors but devastate communities. If the government fails to step in with stronger regulation, this trend could permanently damage local housing markets, turning once thriving neighborhoods into seasonal ghost towns and leaving full-time residents with nowhere to go. Number 9. Broken planning and zoning laws. At the heart of Britain's housing shortage lies a less visible but incredibly powerful obstacle: outdated and restrictive planning laws. Building new homes in the UK isn't just difficult, it's often an outright battle. Councils are bound by complex rules, limited budgets, and local opposition, making it extremely hard to approve and deliver new housing developments. In some parts of the country, up to 90% of planning applications are delayed or rejected, even when there's a clear demand for housing. This red tape keeps supply low and prices high. One major issue is the rise of NIMBism, not in my backyard, where local residents oppose any new development near them, fearing it will lower property values or change the character of their area. While concerns over green spaces and community identity are valid, they've often been used as excuses to block badly needed housing projects. As a result, even areas with space, transport links, and economic potential are left untouched, while younger generations struggle to get on the property ladder or find affordable rent nearby. The system allows a vocal minority to override the pressing needs of the majority. On top of this, there's little national coordination to make housing development fairer and more efficient. Many developers are allowed to sit on land they own without building anything, a practice known as land banking, because there are no serious penalties for doing so. Meanwhile, social housing construction is bogged down by bureaucracy and underfunding. Until the planning system is overhauled to prioritize sustainable, inclusive, and affordable growth, the UK will continue to fall massively short of its housing needs. The longer we delay reform, the more the housing crisis deepens, not because we can't build, but because we've made it nearly impossible to do so. Number 10. Climate change and insurance withdrawals. A growing but often overlooked threat to housing security in the UK is climate change, especially its impact on home insurance. As floods, storms, and coastal erosion become more frequent and severe, insurance companies are starting to refuse coverage in high-risk areas. In regions like Yorkshire, Cumbria, and parts of the southwest, some homeowners are discovering they can no longer insure their properties, or that premiums are so high they are simply unaffordable. And without insurance, mortgage providers won't lend, leaving people stuck with unsellable, unlivable homes. This creates a dangerous ripple effect. Families who have lived in the same house for generations are suddenly being told it's uninsurable. Others who recently bought in good faith are seeing their home values plummet. If a flood damages their property and they are not insured, they are left with massive repair costs they can't afford. Why still, some are forced to abandon their homes entirely, creating what experts are now calling climate displacement within the UK. These aren't isolated cases. They are early warnings of what could become a national emergency. The most alarming part: the government has been slow to respond. While some temporary schemes like Flood Re offer partial support, they are limited in scope and set to end in the coming years. There's no long-term plan for how to protect vulnerable communities or manage the growing number of homes at environmental risk. As the climate crisis intensifies, more areas may become effectively uninhabitable, not by disaster, but by financial inaccessibility. Climate change is no longer a future problem. It's already reshaping our housing landscape. And if action isn't taken soon to strengthen protections and improve infrastructure, thousands more will be pushed out of their homes, not by choice, but by a system that failed to prepare. As we've seen, the housing crisis in the UK isn't the result of just one issue. It's a perfect storm of rising rents, stagnant wages, outdated laws, climate threats, and government inaction. Each problem feeds into the next, creating a system where ordinary people are priced out, pushed out, or left behind. And while it may feel overwhelming, understanding these root causes is the first step to demanding change. This isn't just a story about numbers or policies. It's about real people, real families, and real lives being turned upside down. Whether you're a renter, homeowner, or someone still trying to find your place, housing should be a basic right, not a luxury. The longer we ignore the cracks in this system, the deeper they become. If we want a fairer, more secure future, we need bold reforms, smarter planning, and a housing system built around people, not profits. So, what do you think? Have you faced housing struggles or seen these issues unfold in your own community? Drop a comment below and let's start a real conversation. Your story matters. And if you found this video helpful, please support us. We put a huge amount of time, care, and research into creating content that cuts through the noise and brings you the truth. So please, subscribe to our channel. It's just one click, but it means the world to us. And don't forget to check out our previous video for more insights that really matter.